So it's 10 a.m. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today we'll be focusing on Lean Six Sigma, and in particular how the tools and processes can be leveraged to help improve efficiency and reduce waste. The aim of the webinar is really just to provide a basic introduction to the subject for those who are unfamiliar with the concepts of Lean or Six Sigma or how they can be utilized together. Follows on from our last webinar, which was on food safety culture, because the drive for continuous improvement that's embedded within Lean and Six Sigma is generally embedded within the culture of a company. So this presentation is not meant to be a comprehensive how-to of Lean Six Sigma methodology, which is a highly specialized area involving a lot of training. It's meant to be an introduction. So that said, I thought we would just kick off today by finding out what level of awareness you currently have of Lean Six Sigma. So I've got a poll here, just bear with me, I will launch it. So what's your current level of knowledge of Lean Six Sigma? None, very little, some, we've heard about it a bit, good or excellent. Just leave it on the screen for a few more seconds. Hopefully no one will say excellent, because this would probably be a bit low level for you. Okay, we'll end it there. I'll share the results. So basically, yeah, a lot of you, nearly 50% of you have heard or read about it, but you're not being directly involved in projects, which is good. The rest of you, a mixture of not very much really, and a few have had some project experience. So that's great. Thank you for that. So just before we kick off with the main presentation, just wanted to let you know that we've now officially launched our first Focus on Food training course. In fact, that was the moment when it was officially launched. It's called Basic Food Microbiology. It's a standalone course, and it's now included in Premium Focus on Food membership, so no extra cost for premium members. To access the course, just log in, go to my account, and you'll find a link there to access the course. Or another way is to click on the new courses tab in the top of the Focus on Food homepage, and you'll be taken to the main courses page, where the Basic Food Microbiology is our first course. So that one's there. If you're not a member of a premium subscriber to Focus on Food, the course will cost you $100. So membership is $150. We also have, as part of this launch, we're introducing a new subscription level, enterprise subscription. So this is really for companies, $300 a year. And if you want to have multiple users, so that people can take advantage of the past webinars for training purposes or access the course, you can have multiple users within that membership. So moving on to the main presentation now, according to the American Society of Quality, Lean Six Sigma is a fact-based, data-driven philosophy of improvement that values defect prevention over defect detection. So essentially it drives customer satisfaction and bottom line results by reducing variation, waste, and cycle time, whilst also promoting the use of work standardization and flow. So it creates a competitive advantage. It applies anywhere that variation and waste exist, and every employee should be involved. That's one of the crucial takeaways for me from what Lean Six Sigma is all about. It combines the strategies of both lean manufacturing and Six Sigma and is a performance improvement methodology. The lean principles help to reduce or eliminate process wastes, noted most recognizably by the 8 wastes of Muda. And on the other hand, by focusing on the critical quality characteristics of products that are important for customers, Six Sigma identifies and eliminates mistakes, defects, or failures that can affect the processes. So each of these methodologies proposes a set of attributes that are prerequisites for effective implementation. And really, this is quite similar to last month's webinar where we spoke about food safety culture, because the implementation is reliant on senior management commitment, a cultural change in the organization, good communications down from the top hierarchy, and new approaches to production and to servicing customers, and finally a higher degree of training and education for employees. So it's a good system to be involved with. The integration of the two systems can achieve better results than either system could achieve on its own. So just a quick history of both. Starting in the early 1900s, Henry Ford, famous, built the first truly integrated production process for the Ford Model T, and that leveraged much of the scientific thinking on scientific management, which was put forward by Frederick Taylor. And by the 1930s, the Ford systems had become a bit outdated, and there was a lot of waste built into those systems. And in Japan, Toyota had a look at this and revolutionized the manufacturing of automobiles with the Toyota production system. This system introduced self-monitoring machines to ensure quality, lining the machines up in process sequence, so we got sequencing, and pioneered quick setups so that each machine could make small volumes of many part numbers, having each process step notify the previous step of its current needs for materials. So this will be familiar to obviously a lot of people that work in the food industry. It made it possible to obtain low cost, high variety, high quality, and very rapid throughput times. In the 80s, these principles were more broadly applied in other industries and became, what we know of as just-in-time manufacturing. So the principles of lean have been refined over many years and popularized with several high-profile books. One by John Krafkich, entitled Triumph of the Lean Production System, and also another one which I first came across many years ago was The Machine That Changed the World by James Womack and Daniel Jones. Now, Womack and Jones also in 1996 published one of the most widely influential books on lean called Lean Thinking, and it was this book that sort of formalized and set forth the 5 principles of lean, which we'll look at in a later slide. Six Sigma, as we know it today, originated in Motorola in the 1980s when an engineer called Bill Smith introduced the methodology. It was widely popularized by Jack Welch when he made Six Sigma a central business strategy at General Electric from 1995 onwards. And he was able to drive stratospheric growth of the GE business using these principles. So Six Sigma, as we mentioned earlier, it's a data-driven problem-solving methodology, and the focus is on process variations, and the emphasis is given to customer satisfaction. So it's all about adding value for the customer. Continuous process improvement with low defects is the ultimate goal. And Six Sigma is you make a process effective with a 99.99996% defect-free. This means that a Six Sigma process essentially produces around 3.4 defects per million opportunities or less as a result. And we won't be getting into the statistical side of it because that can get quite complex. But what we'll do in this presentation is go through some of the main principles. We'll start off with the lean principles in a bit, but we'll also move on to the main Six Sigma framework, which is known as DMAIC, DMAIC, and the 5 stages of DMAIC are define, measure, analyze, improve, control. It's a good methodology to have knowledge of. So subsequent refinements of Six Sigma have led to the creation of additional disciplines, most notably Design for Six Sigma, DFSS, which is concerned really about preempting the waste and defect occurrence and removing them at the design stage. There's also a good training element to Six Sigma, and they use the martial arts sort of belts system, and depending on where you get your training and which provider you have, there could be 2, 3, 4, 5 or more levels, including white, yellow, green, black. So that's trying to make it a bit cool, I think. We're looking at the 5 principles of lean. They start with defining value. And really, it's the customer that defines the value of a product or service. So the first step really in defining value is to identify your customers and asking yourself as a business, what does the customer value? How do you find that information out? By figuring out the customer's expectations from your products or services, you can classify the process activities into value added, non-value added, and enabling added value. After defining value, you map the value stream. So the value stream mapping shows the workflow process steps for a product or service, and value stream mapping, we'll have a closer look at this in a few more slides. But it's basically a way of identifying and eliminating non-value added activities. So it helps to reduce process delays and improves the quality of the product or service. The next step or principle of lean is creating flow. So you create a flow to the customer by ensuring a continuous flow system in producing products or services. And the flow will optimize the process to maximize process efficiency. Then you establish pull. A pull approach meets system beat times, and the beat times are the rate at which a product must be ready to meet customer demand. For example, just in time, it's a tool promoting the pull system. It ensures the smooth workflow of the process without any disruptions. It also helps to diminish inventory levels, which obviously is a cost. The final principle is pursuing perfection, which is essentially seeking continuous improvement. And that's all about putting consistent efforts in place to improve the existing business processes and catering to ever-changing customer needs. It ensures the elimination of waste and defects, of free products and quality service for the customers. Now, lean focuses a lot on waste, and when they initially was proposed, or when people worked on it before, there were 7 wastes. Now there are 8 wastes, known in the Japanese as muda, and muda refers to any activity that doesn't add value to the creation of the product or service for the customer. Removing them, all these wastes, is believed to be the key to value delivery for customers. Underutilization of skills was the 8th waste that was added about 20 years ago, and that in this mnemonic, downtime, which I always find is quite easy to remember, it's non-used talent. So Lean incorporates many tools, obviously we won't have time or be able to cover them all in this session. Just purely we've only got 40 minutes. But some of the main ones that are useful to look at are a value stream mapping. That helps to identify process wastes and causes of the waste. We'll go through an example in the next slide. Kaizen, it's a continuous improvement approach. It's a philosophy. It focuses on small improvements. It involves the commitment of everyone in an organization. So that's a cultural change towards process improvements, and facilitated really by people lower down in the management system, but supported by management. And this has been popularized sort of in sport with the theory of marginal gains. Another one's just in time. Just in time's a pull approach, as we mentioned earlier. It meets customer demands as and when the customer requires it. SMED, single minute exchange of dies. That's about improving equipment changeover time. It works on the principle of reducing changeover time to within sort of 10 minutes. Poker yoke, you may well have heard of this. It's a mistake proofing device used in assembly, so it alerts operators on defects or failures, and we'll go through some examples of those later. Jidoka, which is automation, also known as intelligent automation, and that's where the production or assembly line is stopped if a defect occurs. Gemba, we talked about a Gemba walk in the last webinar that we did, and that's basically a literal translation of that is go and see in the place of work. So the aim is to go to the actual place where the work's done, observe the processes and executions in real time with notepad, cameras, record observations. It's not about blame, it's about detecting opportunities for improvement and finding process pitfalls. Kanban, you probably heard of this. It's a signal system to manage inventory levels. So it's a visual system. Kanban boards can be displayed and managed to see the current inventory level on a real-time basis. And it also alerts the management to bring attention to excessive inventory, which is obviously a cost and a waste. It ties up working capital, it blocks it from productive usage. And Kanban boards are now embedded in project management software to great effect. So I mentioned value stream mapping, and this diagram is a basic example of a value stream map applied to a fast food delivery restaurant. Now, a value stream map is a unique flowchart that uses special symbols to visualize the flow of product materials. Value stream mapping breaks down the different steps in a process, and it provides information related to that step based on time, quantity, quality, and other sort of process related metrics. So some of the symbols used here, which are key to all value stream maps, are those representing the customer and supplier. So you see sort of like almost like a factory symbol in the upper corners. It's a bit like a factory or a warehouse. The symbols representing the activities identify the main process steps. So that's these. With a spot to indicate how many participants are needed. And in the example here, preparing food involves 3 participants, while the other steps require only 1. And these data boxes at the bottom represent information about the flow at each process step. So in our example, we've included PT, which is process time. That's the time one product spends in a process step. CT, cycle time, and that's the time between two products coming out of the process step, and A, which is availability. That's the percentage uptime for the activity equipment. Now, the thick black and white arrows represent a push or a move from one process step to another, and the thin line arrows, that's the thick ones, represent information flow, both manual and electronic. And the red triangles are stored inventory, which includes products and materials that are stopped and waiting for processing. Stored inventory can reveal waste such as delays and overproduction. So the little line on the bottom, the up-down line, that denotes the timeline, so that's useful to see the processing times. The lower step indicates sort of useless or unused processing time, that's waiting and delays, and the total times are summed at the end. So in a 37-minute process here, see 22 minutes of it is essentially wasteful. So in Kaizen, that's another step that we mentioned earlier. Improvements are based on small changes. So rather than wait for a major change to be implemented to begin improving, change should be approached in small incremental steps. And this increases the speed to improvement and reduces the pressures of implementing a major change sometimes. So small changes are often less costly and generally less risky. So to this end, a key to making incremental improvements is identifying and solving root causes of issues. And this allows employees to catch and contain small issues before they become larger and costlier to eliminate. It prevents the same problems from reoccurring. Improvements need to be measurable, standardized, and repeatable. So in Kaizen, it's about speaking to the data, managing facts to increase those gains. So in order to evaluate improvements objectively, existing procedures need to be standardized and documented. And then the improvements can be standardized, and all employees should be trained on the new procedures associated with these improvements. And measuring your input performance against existing benchmarks allows you to demonstrate your return on investment from your Kaizen efforts and keep the company aligned around your improvement goals. It also allows you to identify areas where the efforts are working or not, so you can make strategic decisions about future improvements. So a big feature of Kaizen is about empowering employees, and it places emphasis on the value of employees at every level of an organization. And again, this links in with our previous webinar on culture and food safety culture. Employees who are closest to the problem are the best equipped sometimes to solve them, and engaging team members to identify problems and suggest improvements in the work areas encourages a sense of ownership over the work, and that can improve overall motivation, morale, and ultimately productivity. Now, as with food safety culture, it's essential for management to be involved in Kaizen efforts. Ensuring the organization as a whole understands the importance of Kaizen to the business's bottom line is crucial. And gaining buy-in, obviously, is critical to the success of any of these types of initiatives. If your organization's leaders are committed to sustaining a culture of continuous improvement, they can set the tone then for the rest of the company. Now, earlier we mentioned poker yoke, and it's a lean manufacturing tool that refers to mistake proofing or error proofing a process. The phrase itself was originally coined by Shigeo Shingo in the 1960s, and it was part of the Toyota production system. It's present in our everyday lives. There's some examples there just to, make sure that we can sort of understand it at a more basic level. For example, plugs. Plugs are made in a particular way so that they don't go in the wrong place. They can only fit in the socket in one direction. You can't put a plug in upside down. Things like lawnmowers and hedge trimmers only work if you either have a trigger and a handle engaged, or a bar, a specific bar is engaged. That's a safety feature. Things like microwaves, dishwashers, washing machines, they won't work if the door's open. So all these things are examples of poker yoke. Now, you've probably heard of PDCA and the CI cycles, Plan, Do, Check, Act, also known as a Deming wheel. It's a continuous improvement process. It's widely used in businesses today of all types. It can be utilized to improve any process or product by breaking them down into smaller steps or development stages and exploring ways to improve each one. So during the planning phase, you recognize an opportunity, plan a change. During the do stage, you test the change, carry out a small scale study to see how it reacts to the changes that you've made. Check, you review the test stage, analyze the results, identify what you've learned, and then you move on to the act stage where you take action based on what you learned in the study. So if the change didn't work, you go through the cycle again with a different plan. It's a way of enabling you not to commit too much time and resource to making wholesale changes that don't actually ultimately work by planning with a smaller scale project in the first place. So the basic philosophy about that is around continuous improvement. You see the workplace, you identify problems, you implement solutions. Now, as we mentioned earlier, Six Sigma is a data-driven problem-solving methodology. The focus is on process variations and emphasis is given to customer satisfaction. And that's the key thing for me with this Six Sigma. It's about focusing on customers. Continuous process improvement with low defects is the ultimate goal. And Six Sigma originally started as a problem-solving approach to reduce variation in a production and manufacturing environment. And variation means that a process doesn't produce the same result every time. So obviously that is a waste, because if you don't produce what you're trying to produce, that's a defect and that has to get chucked out. So Six Sigma principles are not really about quality in the traditional sense. Quality here is defined as, quality traditionally is defined as conformance to internal requirements. And that's not really what Six Sigma is all about. Six Sigma is more about helping organizations increase profitability by improving the customer value and efficiency. So it's a business strategy. So using Six Sigma methodologies, a business can strategize its plan of action, drive revenue increases, cost reduction, and process improvements, all as part of this project. It's a vision. It helps the senior management create a vision to provide defect-free, positive environment in the organization. It can also act as a benchmark for improving process metrics. Once you've achieved stability, you can use Six Sigma methodology again to improve at a higher level. It's a goal. Using Six Sigma methodology, organizations can keep stringent goals for themselves and work towards achieving them during the course of the year. Right use of, or correct use of, the methodology often leads organizations to achieving goals that they never thought they could achieve when they first set out. It's a statistical measure, so it's a data-driven methodology. So it's based on fact. You know when you've achieved what you set out to achieve. The statistical analysis is done right at the beginning to identify root causes of problems, for example, and then they're used as the basis for making the improvements. It's a robust methodology. It's been used for a long time. It's been tried and tested. It works if it's applied correctly, and that's the key thing here, I think. If it's used in the right manner, Six Sigma improvements are essentially bulletproof and generally give high yielding returns. So we mentioned earlier the methodology of Six Sigma was based on DMAIC, DMAIC, and that stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, control. The first stage is define, and this is obviously the most important stage. The project objectives are outlined, the project charter is created, the problem and the objectives are really clearly defined and based in fact and data and known information. So that then makes everything else that follows a blueprint for success. And a typical Six Sigma charter will contain sort of a business case, a problem statement which clearly states what the problem is that you're trying to solve, a goal statement, again, which clearly defines how you know you will have achieved your goal, the project scope, because one of the dangers is scope creep, what resources you will use, timelines, and of course the benefits. And the charter gives an overview of a Six Sigma project. It's approved by top management, which is really key. So you've got management buy-in for it. At the measurement stage, process variables are measured, all the data is collected, the baseline's obtained, and the metrics are compared with final performance metrics. So process capabilities obtained, how much can you improve by? Analyze, the analyze phase, that's where you do your root cause analysis. A range of sort of analysis tools are utilized to identify the root causes of a defect or a problem that you're seeking to address. And there are lots of tools like histograms, Pareto charts, fishbone diagrams, which we'll look at in a bit, and they're used to identify the root causes. You test some hypotheses, again with using tools like the PDCA, plan, do, check and act. Verify the root causes are actually the root causes. On the improve stage, once you've identified what the root cause of your problem is, you need to work out some solutions, and that's where you develop the solutions to improve the process. The control phase is after the implementation of the solutions. The performance of the solutions must be recorded. A control system needs to be in place to monitor the performance. So it's a bit like HACCP. When you have your food safety controls in place, you obviously need to monitor them and ensure that everything's working as it should. The main purpose of the control phase is to ensure that you hold the gains over time and that you don't slip back into bad habits. You may have heard of SIPOC. It's a very simple idea. SIPOC diagrams were used extensively in sort of total quality management when, years ago, probably back in the 80s. Today, they're an essential part of Lean Six Sigma initiatives and part of the DMAIC cycle. We use SIPOC diagrams in the define stage of the DMAIC cycle to capture all the supplies, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers for the targeted process on a single page. And that's the importance of SIPOC, is just capturing all that information on one page. So it's a very visual, visible tool. You catch the essential elements of a process before any process improvement work begins. And just, this is just a simple example of a SIPOC diagram for a pizza shop. Now, voice of the customer, absolutely critical. It's a term that describes your customers' feedback about their experiences with and expectations from your products or services. It generally, or it very essentially, focuses on customer needs, expectations, understanding, and capacity for product improvement. A customer, it's whoever buys or uses your product services, and they're the ones that receive your process output, essentially. So customers can be categorized into two sections. There are internal customers. So these are people who internal to the organization, such as management, other employees, a functional department, or another element of the company. And your external customers are the people that buy the end product. Customer needs are captured as a desire or an expectation of a customer from a given product or service. They may have many stated needs, which are often vague, and generally are wants from this product or service. A requirement, in contrast, is an attribute of the product or service which fulfills the needs of a customer. And the customer defines these, and requirements are essentially the musts of a product or service, so it must have. Now, part of the voice of the customer is about mapping your customer journey. So we've got a little customer journey map here. It's a tool to plot interactions with your business from sort of initial awareness of either your company or your product through to consideration of different options that you may have or they may have for purchasing, to the purchase of your product, and then any after sales service there may be, and whether that customer will be loyal and hopefully a promoter of your business and products. Now, along the way, touch points are mentioned, and touch points are points where the potential customer engages with your business or your product to some extent. That could be through an advert, an article, or through a follow-up after purchasing your website service. So if we set everything up correctly, we end up with something like this, which is a sort of semi-populated customer journey map, for an example. And this information really is critical in informing the actions that need to be taken to remove the pain points, which are quite simply captured here between a smiley face and a not smiley face. So these are your customer pain points where they experience problems or issues in either purchasing or finding out about your product. Now, earlier we mentioned root cause analysis and problem solving. Obviously, is a key element of Six Sigma methodology. And there are a couple of really simple but effective tools that you can use. And these are also applicable, of course, in root cause analysis, just in HACCP as well. You can use these quite simply to help find the root cause of a problem. The 5 whys approach is one of the simplest methods available, and it just involves being like a kid and asking why repeatedly until the root cause of a problem is revealed. It's important to start with a clear definition of the problem, and you ask why the problem occurred. The first response is hardly ever the root cause. And obviously subsequent follow-up whys take you deeper and deeper into the underlying causes of an issue. Another really useful tool is the fishbone or Ishikawa diagram. Again, you start with the problem, which is the head of the fish, and you consider possible causes from a range of areas of the business. In this example, it includes people, process, equipment, materials, environment, and management. For a very powerful root cause analysis process, you can combine the 5 whys with a fishbone analysis. And you start with fishbone and then apply the 5 whys on each of the sub-items in the fishbone diagram. And this approach has the advantage of being able to determine relationships between different root causes as well. So one of the key benefits of these sort of tools is that they don't require heavy statistical analysis, and they can be deployed quite quickly and cheaply. It's just about getting people together and applying brains onto a specific problem. One of the essential elements of HACCP, is establishing corrective actions to be taken when monitoring indicates there's a loss of control. So these tools can help in this aspect as well. So 5S, this is one that everybody loves. You may have already seen examples of 5S or heard about it or seen it in action. And again, the concept was originally developed in Japan as a means for improving operational efficiencies, especially for ensuring just-in-time manufacturing. It's pretty much about being organized and having things in a particular order. So 5S stands for sort, set in order, shine or sweep, standardize and sustain. And it's a program of reducing operational steps and improving the overall cleanliness and efficiency of a work area. Obviously, you can appreciate how important this is in the food industry. And the aim is making it more productive, but also safer. We can expand that, say development and implementation of a 5S program can also enhance your overall food safety and quality. A simple way of looking at 5S is everything has a place and everything in its place. So with the sort step, you're looking to identify and eliminate excess waste, which means getting rid of things such as broken, useless or redundant items. Utilizing the sorting step to look at items throughout the facility and arrange materials based on how often they're used. So you don't want things in a key area that are hardly ever used there. Setting in order is as it sounds. It's about organizing everything so that it's visually easy to get to what you need, that it makes sense in a process. There's no point in having things stored at the beginning of a process that aren't used until the end of a process. You don't want people walking back along the line to fetch things, to take them to the end, etc. So it's about working with whoever uses the process on a daily basis to discover and implement a system whereby everything's where it should be when you need it. Shine and sweep, it's about more than just cleaning. It's obviously about keeping the facility clean, but also maintaining equipment properly according to established schedules, making sure the first 2 steps, sort and set in order, are kept up. Shine will be part of the master cleaning schedule, and it's one of the most important prerequisite programs in a food safety management system, obviously. We all know about separating the plant from dirty to clean, etc., having proper flow. All these sorts of things are part of the shine step. And step 4 is standardize. It's quite simple. When the first 3 steps are properly maintained, you standardize that. So you have cleaning and maintenance schedules, standards for people responsible for managing different areas. They must be able to live up to them. You have check sheets to ensure the work's not only done, but done properly, and assessments are aimed at improving systems. So you get internally audited on your 5S system. It's part of part of what you do on a daily and weekly basis. And obviously standardization then helps with the final step, which is sustain. So the goal of the program is to make lasting and continuous improvements. So sustaining it is critical to those improvements. Documentation helps, reviewing to check that the improvements were achieved. Before and after pictures, that sort of thing helps you to sustain. Just some quick examples. "5S in practice," you see before and after. Yep, covered with obviously everything's untidy, but also there's a lot of stuff in there that's not actually needed for that particular part of the facility. And obviously we all know about the color coding of cleaning equipment, making sure that you've got the right tools in the right areas. You don't take tools outside of specific areas, and you know where the tool's going to be when you actually need it. So those sort of the background shadow images are really important. Again, it's everything has a place, everything in its place. Now, in terms of putting everything together, I mean, we haven't, you know, for me, it starts with the customers, and really the essential truth from a customer standpoint arrives at the time when they experience your product or service or solution. And customers today have more access to both information and choices. They demand the best at the lowest possible price point and expect to be supported through their product experience as well. So this calls for an outside-in approach to business processes, which is sort of at the core of Lean Six Sigma. The customer needs to be at the center of all planning, really. And that sort of highlights the importance of the voice of the customer stage. Now, with an outside-in approach comes the need to define the business process value chain, and customers expect to pay for the product, but the product only, and they don't expect to pay for inefficiencies like rework, revisions, wastage, etc., which are incorporated in higher prices if your process is inefficient. So Lean Six Sigma, the two working together, helps organizations focus on consistently producing quality output and improving the value chain so that customers get the best quality within their expected timelines. In terms of employees, it's really important that all of this, if you're going to take on a Lean Six Sigma project or start to introduce some of the concepts into your business, you need to get everybody on board. It has to be a cultural thing for the business. Peter Drucker said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," and that's still true. Whatever your plans, if everybody's not on board for them, it won't necessarily work as you hope. So unless a well-defined business process transformation strategy is driven at leadership level, but also at grassroots level, you might end up with just achieving a status quo again. So Lean Six Sigma, when it works at its best, it's driven as part of the company DNA. So all stakeholders at all levels speak the same language, they're on board, they know what they're trying to achieve, they practice what is being preached. And again, you know, food businesses are quite well placed to take this on board because of the culture of food safety, where it's embedded within the company and everybody's encouraged to take on board making sure that the final product is safe. So it's not too big a step from a culture of food safety to a culture of continuous improvement. Of course, it's not all rosy. Lean Six Sigma has not been without its critics over time. There are a number of pitfalls that can derail a project or certainly lessen its impact. There was a study in 2014 that found that most Lean Six Sigma projects, certainly major ones, when they failed, it was for one of sort of 10 reasons, but the key one was the lack of management support. That was far and away the biggest reason, which obviously meant that the projects were not, and the methodology and the thinking and the culture was not embedded within the company at that level. So essentially, after management support, the rest of those are all about, they can really be explained by the relative experience or otherwise of the team undertaking the project. So, you know, if you're going to do it, it's important to get educated first, and to be absolutely sure about what your capabilities are and what it is that you want to achieve from a project. Some projects fail because the expectations are far too high to begin with, and they're unrealistic. So if you have a laser focus on the business, financial, process and customer goals, I think that's really the key guiding principle for project selection, which is important. And obviously your projects need to be prioritized effectively. Now, I don't recommend you go away today and start implementing Lean Six Sigma projects. Really, the purpose of the session was to introduce you to some of the basic principles and hopefully maybe flick a switch or motivate you to want to learn a bit more about the methodologies by showing some of the simple tools that you can be that you can use. So thank you again to everyone who's taken the time to come today. I really do hope that there was something in the presentation that was either useful for you or sparked some interest in Lean Six Sigma generally, and maybe how it can be applied in your company. Now, our next webinar will be back on more familiar ground as we focus on food fraud. And obviously that's a bit of a hot topic in today's uncertain world. That one will be held on Friday, May the 28th, at the same time, 10 a.m. And again, for anyone interested in subscribing to Focus on Food, there's the website address. You can register there. Thank you all again for coming, and hope you have a great day. See you next month.